around what it is to be a cloud security architect, how to become a cloud security architect. I guess as a bit of a background, the reason I'm looking to put this out there is mainly because it's a lot of what I'm seeing as client demand is, can you find us individuals who have skills within cloud security architecture, but not just that. It's how can we actually take someone who's not quite there yet and develop them into a cloud security architect, because a lot of clients are understanding of actually there aren't that many people out there with the skills. We might have to be a bit more flexible.
Yeah. No, and it is a common problem. So I guess if we take it back, probably just to give some context, if we take it back to the idea of a security architect, is fundamentally just a hybrid. It's not just a role as such, but if you look at my background, I started as a trainer on network, infrastructure, security, and security used to be just firewalls, firewall rules, IPS rules, so anything network security centric. And then you had a whole shebang of focus on application security. And there used to be two very, very different worlds. So infrastructure, network, and if you want normal admin stuff, then you had the risk and compliance world, and you had the application security architect or dev with the security hat on. Those would be the three main categories of security people. Now, if you collapse that into the cloud world, you're effectively mixing up the three elements. So you're mixing up, network security is not anymore that relevant, and you only have fundamentally IPS, IDS, firewall rules, but setting them up is becoming a little bit more trivial. So you have that more into the data center world. And what it becomes more and more relevant is actually application security, because if you think about elements like function as a service, where you just throw some code and it gets executed, then it becomes much more relevant that a cloud security architect actually has a very, very good understanding of application security problem. So if you want, it's an evolution of a traditional security architect that still has a need to have an understanding of the enterprise security architect challenges, because it still need to have a foot on-prem, unless it's a completely dedicated on the cloud security stuff. But it is a much more complex, because it needs to have an oversight on contractual stuff, an oversight on SLA, an oversight on risk and compliance, an oversight on technical controls and technical stuff that is out there, and work with the rest of the team. So it needs to be a little bit of a politician as well, because it needs to influence and work with the rest of the team. Because it is a figure that it is a role that is so spread across the entire of the organization. If it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one interesting thing that you mentioned is you need to be an influencer across the rest of the team. And I understand it's not completely black and white, but where do you think a cloud security architect should sit in what team?
That's another challenging question. So in all the clients that I work with, it tends to sit in two roles. So if it sits in the architecture space, then is where it has the more influence. But the problem is, in sitting in the architecture space and reporting on the head of architecture, it's coerced. So a security architect as such need to have the freedom to flash out and point out challenges from a security perspective. So need to have that freedom by reporting to the CISO. So it needs to be in the architecture space, but have a reporting line to the CISO. That's where the security architect is more free and effective in an organization, because otherwise it will be coerced by the delivery. And if a project wants to go ahead, then the reporting line is on the project side. So on architecture, on the architecture space, they tend to report to to the C-level for the technical stuff, so the CIO or the COO or the CTO, depending on how the organization is structured. But I tend to be focused on actually delivering the rendering. What the security architect needs to be focused on actually risk and compliance and working with the other architect. But if he spots something that is wrong, it needs to have the freedom to actually flash it out.
Mm-hmm.
So just as a summary, it needs to sit in the architecture space, needs to peer with all the other architects, need to lead the security discussion in that word, but the reporting line needs to be on the CISO.
Okay. An interesting take, and to be honest, one that I don't see very often. Normally, from what I see, it tends to be you either report directly into the CISO and work in the architecture space, or report into a head of architecture and report direct into that space and not really sit with security at all.
Yeah, it's wrong either way, because I mean, it's not wrong. It's a role that is evolving, and we're gonna find our footing and our space while we go along. But in order to be more effective, that's the best way. And there are nuances on every kind of role where you might have, you know, a more security focused and security wise architecture lead, because in all my talk I said security is everybody's responsibility. So
yeah,
the architecture lead or the head of architecture cannot say I'm not interested in security. But there is always a challenge where maybe the lead is not interested is more interested in delivering fast rather than delivering securely.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be that freedom of actually reporting line.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to one of the questions that I sent across before the call will be, what actually attracted you to cloud security?
So I started my journey in cloud security, I think 8 years ago, when cloud wasn't considered cloud. So you had still Azure with boosting capabilities. AWS was, I think, back in 2006 in the infancy. And I saw the opportunity to shape the future of the world. So I believe in making the world secure one project at a time. And if you look at the opportunity, cloud security is effectively just to reset the clock, because security, if you look at 20 to 25 years ago, security was not a big of a deal. Projects were not developed with security mindset, and that led to the current status of insecure application, insecure data center. And everything that we've done from 20 years ago onward to today is been basically just bolting on security in new project, in trying to do new project better, or bolting on security control on existing data center. Now on the cloud, I actually have a unique opportunity to start with security from scratch. So with the security mindset and with a security focus. And that's an opportunity. So that's why I said, I want to change the word. Where can I do it? I can do it from the cloud.
Okay.
And also it's interesting. It's interesting. It's an interesting challenge. It's an interesting opportunity. And if you take, for example, controls, it's much more probable that somebody with a use base like AWS or Azure has much more effective control than an organization that has limited spending in security. So leveraging cloud control, you can actually make a real difference. Now there is a whole question of actually, once you've done that, you're locked in pretty much on the cloud provider, because you want to maximize the use of the capability, and you're locked in. So the cloud access strategy is a topic that is more and more relevant, but it could be a security challenge. It couldn't be. Fundamentally, a security architect it's just the shape of every other architect. So we tend to have an opinion about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Absolutely
It's a
right.
risk.
I think,
If you look at it as a risk to be logged in a cloud provider is a risk.
I guess with that, what would you say is the current, leading cloud platform or the emerging competitors?
That's a very interesting question. So I think it depends. So you have a lot of expertise on AWS, but AWS is not a very approachable cloud platform because it's very, very complex. So they give you effectively the engineering power and they give you the opportunity to do whatever you want, but you need to have the expertise to actually do that. And there is more and more expertise, but it's really complex to start on AWS. While if you look at Azure is more focused on enterprise that want to jump on board and want to start leveraging on cloud functionality without hiring an army of engineers to actually build that. And I had to say, there is much more chances that you do that securely. I've seen many more mistakes on AWS rather than on Azure from a security perspective. Even though if you step into something without understanding what you're doing, you're prone to make mistakes, security or non-security wise. But I found it more, if you want, a little bit more user-friendly, or Microsoft has always been from back, I think, in 2010, more focused on the graphic user interface, while AWS in 2006 was pretty much just API-based. And then you have the close follower that is Google Cloud, that is fundamentally not very focused on the compute side, but is very, very focused on analytics. So where they show real capabilities, actually unstructured database and stuff like that, and management of encryption and keys. They do a wonderful job in that. So I think it depends on what you want to use, what capability what you want to use.
Okay, I see. I mean, yeah, I think certainly the encryption side of Google Cloud is something that could make it certainly a more attractive option for organizations moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to use unstructured data and just throw data in database and create tables on the fly and not worry about security because it's kind of taken care of, then it becomes an attractive offer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I guess going from you looking at how you were initially attracted to cloud because you thought there was a real opportunity to build security and from the start and really shape how it looks within the cloud. How did you actually go about becoming a cloud security architect?
I just reskilled myself. So doing. At the beginning, there was no training. I think in 2006 there was no training, no material, no. You just try and run it and break stuff and use it and interact with the community. That's how I became part of the Cloud Security Alliance, because there was no documentation around the cloud. And 2010, Microsoft was exactly the same. So it was really, really painful to interact with some of this stuff and not having reference documentation because it was so new. And that's why I joined the Cloud Security Alliance, and I put the effort to actually develop pattern with my organization and, share that knowledge, because ultimately that's the only way. So learn by breaking and testing, and it's still the very effective way, even though nowadays there has been massive adoption. So there is much more material out there. So there is IC Square has published their CCSP, CSP certification. That is a good stepping stone. Cloud Security Alliance has published their body of knowledge, the CCSK certification. And there is a lot more material out there. So Azure is publishing a lot of reference material on the security side. They start doing a security track on that for upskilling. AWS is doing is a close follower. So
Okay.
I think there is much more material there. It's just looking at which one to use. So the recommendation is start from framework like the CCSK because it gives you an oversight. Then move to the CSP if you want another certification for IC Square, and then move to the technical certification like the Microsoft track or the AWS track. I don't think Google has a security focused certification. It's a little bit scattered, but AWS and Microsoft are starting to train only on security because they have a massive amount of product now out there.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, take the, I guess, a neutralized version first before going down a specific track and saying, I want to be a qualified security professional within Azure or AWS.
Yeah, and ultimately,
And
that gives you the breathing space and say these are all the problems that I need to consider. So you end up realizing really quickly they're not security problems; they're just problems with a security lens on it. That's why I say security is everybody's job, because network has a security component in it, infrastructure has a security component in it, application has a security component in it, and in the cloud you touch all those elements. So it becomes the role of a security architect become a mile wide and an inch thin. So you need to be a little bit of a generalist with some verticals like network, like development, so application security, or yeah, even though it tend to be mixed. You tend to be an expert depending on your background. Even if you were a dev or an admin, those were the two main categories. I wouldn't include risk and compliance because it's not a very technical role. And then you develop those other skills as a light touch.
okay, and I guess just to confirm, your CCSP is Certified Cloud Security Professionals. I understand. And what does CCSK stand for?
Certified Cloud Security Knowledge.
Okay.
So if you want, the
What's that?
CCSK is the base one that says it's certified that you know stuff around the cloud, you understand the division of responsibility and things like that. And with the Cloud Security Alliance, we published a body of knowledge, so there is a body of knowledge, and the exam is online. While the IC Square equivalent, they have another body of knowledge that is more or less on the same topic. So if you study one, you can actually take both certifications.
Okay.
They're just slightly different.
And on the Cloud Security Alliance, it's something I've only came across very recently. Could you explain a bit more about that for me, please?
Yeah, so we are a non-for-profit organization. We have done, we had two streams of, if you want, three pillars. One is on the education. One is where we develop the body of knowledge and an exam. I think the latest iteration is the version 4, and it's all for free, with the exception of the exam that I think is $300. Then there is the evangelization, so making sure that the cloud adoption runs smoothly by making sure that everybody knows about how to secure the cloud, and you get demystification. And we engage in all the major conference, we run event, we run meeting, webinar, and things like that, all for free. And yeah, this is what we do. And then the third pillar is actually research, where we have a pool of people that is interested in specific topics. So we either surface the topic that we're interested in because we're all practitioner, or we do research on existing topic. So there is a research director that has I think we have running 40 and odd research at the current point in time. But that was
quite a bit.
There was a point where the Cloud Security Alliance was born, and then on the side of that we have the Star Alliance and the CCM, the Cloud Control Matrix. So the Cloud Control Matrix was born to actually map all the existing standards, so ISO 27001, COVID, and so on and so forth, back to cloud-specific topic. And then on the back of that, we developed the STAR certification that is effectively an equivalent on ISO 27001, and we have two levels. One is a self-assessment, and the second one is an official certification where you ask an auditor to come in and check you doing dose control. And the certification are published on the Cloud Security Alliance website, so it effectively becomes a list of all the providers that actually are taking seriously security. So if you want to go and purchase a specific service, it could be a SaaS service, or it could be a new service like Azure. You go there, you search, is it secure enough? Yes. Can I see how do they do security? Because they had to reply to a quite extensive spreadsheet of how do they do control and security, and is available. So the latest version is available on the site and it's for free. So it's a way to check the due diligence that a cloud provider does. And the whole point of it was actually to incentivize the cloud adoption. And we work for fundamentally all the members work non-profit. We have I don't remember the last number, but we have a quite widespread use base in most of the organization. So our member works in most of the Fortune 500s. So we have a good visibility on the existing problem and the problem that are coming up.
Fantastic. So a real knowledge sharing platform then, with the overall aim of improving cloud security across industry. Okay.
Yeah.
Good
and
work.
With participation of the on conference and everything else, you get the feeling of the latest problem, the latest headache that the company have, organization have.
Okay. Super. And I guess to my next question, why would a security professional want to choose cloud as their SME domain, in comparison to maybe identity and access management or network or general infrastructure within security?
Do you want to have a job in 2 years or not? That would be my question. It is around. I can tell you a story. I had this conversation with, it wasn't a security person, but it was an infrastructure person. And he was very, very knowledgeable about VMware, but he was a very hard man and a hard person that was sticking to to one specific topic. And I was trying to get him through the cloud transformation and everything else. And Pete told me, look, Francesco, I'm not interested in the cloud. I'm interested just in focusing on my area and keeping on my areas. And then I replied to Pete, it's like, that's absolutely fine. You can become the maximum expert on VMware, but then you're going to go out of job very, very quickly because you focus on a very, very specific area. Well, if you focus on the future, that is the cloud, then you can have this mass adoption. So to take it back to the context of what we're discussing, you can either decide to be a very, very specialist like Pete wanted to be and work, and there might be a market for it, actually very, very fruitful market, but you need to be really on top of your game, because there is such a niche market that even if there are 2 or 3 players, you probably won't find a gig. And if you take it to COBOL, ex-COBOL developer, I was talking to Frank the other day, and he's a very specialized COBOL developer, and he has a lot of opportunities. Well, not that many opportunities, but very, very remunerative opportunity, but they're scattered around the year, so it doesn't have continuity. So it really depends who you want to be. If you want to be somebody that helps the majority of the organization and help drive the conversation forward on a security aspect, or if you want to be like Frank and like Pete, very, very specialized on a specific topic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. And what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to become a cloud security architect, or I guess a cloud security professional in general?
I think it just go around, have an understanding of the widespread of the problem that you might encounter and where you should focus. Don't get lost. So understand where your expertise, where your background can actually help you developing your expertise. So if you're coming from a developer, then that's your part to application specific problem on the cloud, or maybe infrastructure as a code, or maybe things specific. So leverage your existing background. It's not all gone from scratch, but it just need to be repurposed on the cloud. So understand the cloud, that is nothing else than actually a data center somewhere, but there is that level of abstraction that need to be taken into account. And then go out and talk to people. So there is a lot of material out there. As you see, the Cloud Security Alliance is published a lot of stuff. My organization, NSC42, is publishing a lot of patents. Use and leverage the knowledge that is already out there. Don't get lost, and peer with other people. So participate in the Cloud Security Alliance forum, participate in cloud security or cloud specific conferences, peer with other people. We are in we as a Cloud Security Alliance, we're in most of the organization, most of the cloud conferences. So peer with us, ask your question, and you get free consultancy. You get free knowledge. And I also have a mentoring call when I help people actually directly, not just on cloud security topic, but it's an effort that I'm doing with ISC Square and Microsoft, where I help people develop their path. So if you want to be a pen tester, if you want to be a cloud specialist, if you want to be an infrastructure, if you want to work in risk and compliance, what path do you choose? Because I had a lot of mentee from my early days that were asking, what do I do next? I had Aaron asking for this. I had Amy asking for this. It's like, I'm here, I'm stuck. Where do I do this? How do I go from here? So and I help them developing their passion and helping seeking the problem that they want to fix, and then directing them on the specific topic.
Okay. Awesome. I think you know, I think that's a good service to provide people. You know, there's a lot of people out there who obviously don't really know where to start with this kind of stuff. You know, it all seems so broad, the informational cybersecurity.
It is broad. It is a very broad subject, and you can get lost very, very quickly if you're not careful. But there's also an opportunity. Yeah, sure. So there is, you can choose any kind of field you want to work on. So if you're in any of those fields, you can put your security hat on, and your salary get a boost, and you get new challenge and new opportunity. I mean, security job are nowadays one of the most paid job. So there is an interest in actually getting upskill. They're also the most challenging one. But if you're up for a challenge.
Yeah, dive right in. Yeah, from myself, I think that was all I wanted to cover from our interview. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Any, I guess, final thoughts?
I would say give back to the community. So the community is giving a lot to people. Give back to the community. So even if you want to volunteer, even if you want to just share your knowledge, do research, even any little effort is important to actually take security to the next step. Get involved and get on board on the security challenge. There is a massive lack of people. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to have a security background. Security is nothing else than doing things right. And it's an exciting field to be on. Those will be my last message to the aspiring security people, security architect, or cloud security architect.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thanks again for your time. I'll be putting together the article probably towards the end of the quarter or over the next month or so, but I'll share a copy with you, and I'll let you know your contribution. Thanks a lot, Francesco.